You have been out here for 4 days without food. Your body is running on reserves. Every decision costs more than it should. Every mistake carries weight you cannot afford. But right now, the thing most likely to end your survival situation is not hunger. It is not exhaustion. It is not even the cold. It is something 500 meters above your head that you cannot hear, cannot see, and almost certainly do not know is there. A thermal drone. And it sees you perfectly. It does not matter that you are lying still. It does not matter that you pulled a tarp over yourself. Right now, in this moment, you are the brightest object in a several-kilometer radius. You are lit up on that operator's screen like a flare in a dark field. You are the most obvious target in the entire landscape. But that is about to change. Welcome to Survival Secrets. If this channel is not already part of your life, this is the moment to join us. Because what we are covering today is exactly the kind of knowledge that no conventional survival course will ever teach you. The techniques that exist outside the curriculum. The information that only matters when the situation is genuinely serious. Before we go any further, I want to ask you something, and I genuinely want your answer in the comments below. Have you ever actually built an emergency shelter in the field? Not a practice run in your backyard. In real conditions. Under rain, under cold, under pressure. Tell me what happened. The experiences this community shares directly shape what I build next, and I read every single one of them. Now, back to the drone. To understand how to disappear from thermal surveillance, you first have to understand exactly what a thermal sensor actually sees. And this is where almost everyone gets it fundamentally wrong, because the misunderstanding is built into how we talk about it. A thermal camera does not detect heat, it detects thermal contrast, the difference in temperature between two surfaces. That distinction sounds small. It is not. It changes everything about how you approach concealment. Picture the image that drone is sending back to its operator right now. A landscape rendered in shades of gray. The ground is cold. The rocks are cold. The air is cold. Everything in the frame is roughly the same temperature, roughly the same shade. And then there is you. A brilliant white shape, unmistakably human in outline, glowing against the gray landscape like a light left on in an empty building. Your body maintains a core temperature of around 98 degrees Fahrenheit. The ground around you might be sitting at 50 degrees, maybe lower. That gap is enormous to a modern thermal sensor. It does not need to be subtle. It does not need to work hard. You are announcing yourself. And here is the part that most people get wrong when they first think about this problem. Pulling a tarp over your body does not hide you. What it actually does is give the heat from your body a new surface to warm up. That tarp absorbs your thermal output, heats to somewhere between your body temperature and the ambient air temperature, and presents on the screen as a slightly larger, slightly more diffuse white shape. You are still completely visible. You have just changed the shape of the signature slightly. To actually solve this problem, you have to go deeper than tarps and branches. You have to understand the physics, because the physics does not care about your intentions. It only responds to correct solutions. There are 3 thermal laws that govern this problem, and you need to understand all 3 of them before you touch a single piece of material. The first law is radiation. Your body emits infrared energy continuously and invisibly. You cannot feel yourself doing it. You cannot stop yourself doing it. It is a constant output that thermal cameras are specifically engineered to detect. This is the primary threat, and it requires a direct physical counter, not a workaround. The second law is conduction. Heat transfers through direct contact between surfaces. If your outer clothing or shelter material is touching your body or touching something that is touching your body, heat will travel through that contact point from your skin to the outer surface. The result is a warm exterior surface that glows clearly from above. You can have the best intentions in the world with your shelter design, and conduction will undo all of it if you have not specifically accounted for it. The third law is convection. Moving air carries heat away from its source. Wind pulls your thermal output away from your body and distributes it into the surrounding environment. A tarp or a basic shelter wall stops the wind, and many people believe that is sufficient. It is not. You have stopped one of the 3 mechanisms. The other 2 are still working against you. To become genuinely invisible to a thermal system, you need to neutralize all 3 simultaneously. Partial solutions produce partial concealment. Partial concealment, against a system that is actively looking for you, is not concealment at all. So we are going to build a shelter right now, layer by layer, and I am going to explain exactly why each element exists where it exists and what it is physically doing for you. Start with the ground itself. You do not need a deep trench. You are not trying to dig a bunker. What you need is a shallow depression, just enough to bring your body level with or very slightly below the surrounding terrain. The purpose here is twofold. First, you reduce your profile from any aerial perspective. Second, and more importantly, you begin to take advantage of the Earth's thermal mass. The ground at depth is a massive thermal stabilizer. It holds temperature far more consistently than air. That stability is something you are going to exploit deliberately throughout this entire construction. Now the first layer. And this is the layer that addresses the biggest threat directly. Take an emergency blanket. One of those thin, crinkly, aluminized sheets that weigh almost nothing and fold down to fit in a jacket pocket. You are going to place this as the innermost layer of your shelter, directly surrounding your body space. And here is the detail that surprises almost everyone the first time they hear it. The reflective face goes inward, toward your body, not outward. Most people's instinct is to face the shiny side out, because the intuitive logic is that you want to bounce heat back from the outside. That logic applies in a purely cold weather warmth retention context. Here the objective is completely different. You want to capture the infrared radiation your body is emitting before it has the chance to travel outward into the structure of your shelter. That aluminized surface reflects the overwhelming majority of your infrared output directly back toward you. You are building a mirror around your thermal signature. The heat cannot escape because you are returning it to its source before it reaches anything else. Your infrared signature is being contained at the innermost layer, but that creates an immediate second problem that you have to solve before it defeats everything you just built. The air between your body and that reflective barrier is going to warm up. Warm air trapped against a surface will eventually transfer heat through that surface by conduction. If that warmed air reaches the next layer of your shelter, you have rebuilt the exact problem you just solved. This is where the second layer comes in, and it is the layer that most improvised shelters completely omit. The dead air gap. Using thin branches, sections of any rigid material you have available, or any structural element that creates physical separation, you construct a framework that holds the next layer of shelter material at least 6 inches above the reflective barrier. That gap creates a pocket of trapped, motionless air. Still air is one of the worst thermal conductors that exists. When air cannot move, it cannot form convection currents, and without convection currents, its ability to transfer heat drops dramatically. This is the exact principle behind double-glazed windows in modern buildings. It is not the glass that provides the insulation. It is the sealed air gap between the two panes of glass. That 6-inch dead airspace cuts the thermal bridge between your warm interior and whatever is above it. Without this gap, heat from the trapped air would conduct directly upward through the next layer and warm its outer surface. The drone would see it clearly. With the gap in place, that bridge is severed. Picture what you have built so far. Your body in the shallow depression, reflective barrier surrounding the body space, shiny face inward, capturing your infrared output, 6 inches of dead, motionless air above that barrier. Nothing touching nothing except through that air gap that transfers almost no heat at all. Now comes the outer layer, and this layer has a completely different job from the two beneath it. Its job is not to insulate. The insulation has already been handled. Its job is to reach thermal equilibrium with the surrounding terrain and hold it. For this you need mass, at minimum 12 inches and ideally closer to 18 inches of dense packed material, compacted earth, dense wet leaves, packed snow, any natural material with significant weight and density. This mass has two functions working simultaneously. First, it absorbs any trace of residual heat that manages to filter through the dead air gap, which should be minimal if you have built correctly, and it dissipates that heat so gradually and so diffusely that no warm point ever develops on the outer surface. Second, because of its thermal mass and its direct contact with the surrounding ground, it naturally equilibrates to the temperature of the environment around it, not your body temperature, not the temperature of the warm air inside your shelter, the temperature of the cold ground and cold air outside. From directly above, the surface of your shelter reads as thermally identical to the terrain surrounding it. The signature has disappeared. You are not finished yet. A thermally perfect shelter can still be detected, not by heat, by shape. Modern reconnaissance systems and even a trained human observer are not only scanning for temperature anomalies, they are scanning for patterns, and human beings build in straight lines. We create right angles. We produce flat surfaces and geometric edges. Nature does not do any of those things. A rectangular depression in a forest floor is a signal. A flat surface surrounded by irregular organic terrain is a signal. Hard shadow lines cast by geometric edges are a signal. Even to a human eye, these things read as wrong. To a pattern recognition algorithm, they are flags. This means that shape discipline is not optional. It is as critical as the thermal layering you just completed. Every straight edge on your structure needs to be broken by irregular branches that cross the actual boundary of the shelter and extend beyond it in random directions. The flat outer surface needs to become a collection of irregular mounds, dips, and varied textures that replicate the chaotic appearance of undisturbed forest floor or natural terrain. Hard geometric shadows need to be dissolved under a layered, overlapping application of natural materials placed without any consistent pattern. From above, your shelter should be visually indistinguishable from another unremarkable, messy corner of the landscape. It should look like nothing happened there. Now comes the point that surprises people more than almost anything else in this entire system. You can execute everything above perfectly. The shelter is thermally invisible. The shape is broken and organic. From above, there is nothing there, and you can still be detected because every time you exhale, you release a column of warm, humid air. On a thermal image, that breath plume is as visible as a lit torch in a dark room. You solved the shelter. You did not solve yourself. You have to manage your respiratory signature. The most accessible solution is to breathe through a dense fabric layer. A thick wool scarf or a folded wool garment held over your nose and mouth acts as a heat exchanger. It captures a portion of the thermal energy in your exhaled breath and distributes it across a much larger surface area, cooling the air before it exits into the interior of the shelter. It does not eliminate the signature completely, but it reduces it significantly. The most effective solution for a static position is a technique called mouse ventilation. Instead of allowing your exhaled air to rise directly upward inside the shelter, you construct a small ventilation channel at ground level that routes that airflow horizontally toward the base of a nearby shrub or into a pile of leaves and organic ground debris. Your breath enters that material and disperses horizontally through thousands of tiny air pockets between leaves and branches. By the time any residual warmth reaches the outer surface of that material, it has spread across such a large area that its thermal signature has effectively disappeared. The drone sees nothing. When the situation calls for it, invisibility alone is not always sufficient. A sophisticated enough system may begin to register the absence of a signal where a signal should logically exist. It may flag the anomaly of something that is not there. In those circumstances, active deception becomes the next layer of the strategy. Thermal decoys are straightforward to construct from minimal materials. A small candle or a chemical hand warmer placed beneath an overturned metal container generates a consistent, well-defined heat signature. Position 2 or 3 of these decoys between 50 and 100 meters from your actual location in different directions, and you have created a set of targets that any automated thermal scanning system will prioritize. These signatures are clear. They read as equipment in operation, possibly as human presence. The system pursues them. Your position carrying a near-zero thermal signature and no geometric anomalies receives no attention at all. You are not hiding from the system. You are redirecting it. Let us go through everything we have built in order, because understanding the complete sequence is what makes this work as a system rather than a collection of individual techniques. The innermost layer is the radiant barrier. The reflective surface faces inward toward your body, capturing your infrared output before it can propagate outward into the shelter structure. Your thermal signature is contained at its source. Above that, the dead air gap of at minimum 6 inches. This gap severs the conductive bridge between the warm interior and the outer layers. Still air transfers almost no heat. The gap is the break in the chain. Above that, the outer mass layer of 12 to 18 inches of dense natural material. This layer equilibrates to ambient environmental temperature, absorbs any residual trace heat that passes through the gap, and presents a thermally neutral surface to any aerial sensor. Over the entire structure, shape discipline, Every straight line broken, every flat surface disrupted. The structure made visually indistinguishable from natural terrain from any angle above. Within the shelter, respiratory management. Your exhaled breath redirected horizontally through dense ground-level organic material before it can rise and create a visible plume signature. And at distance from your position, active decoys. Thermal signals that give any automated search system something to pursue, pulling its attention away from the location that carries no detectable signature. Each one of these layers in isolation is incomplete. Combined in sequence, they address every detection mechanism a modern thermal system uses. You are not trying to be harder to find. You are engineering a genuine absence. The threat represented by thermal drone surveillance is not going to diminish. The technology is becoming cheaper, more capable, more widely available, and more heavily integrated into search and detection operations at every level. The only intelligent response to a threat that is growing is to understand it more thoroughly than the people operating it. That is what we do here. Not surface-level awareness, not the basics, the physics, the engineering, the layered thinking that turns a dangerous situation into a manageable one. If this video changed how you think about concealment and detection, share it with one person who takes survival seriously. Every share puts this information in front of someone who might one day need it for real. Subscribe to Survival Secrets. New video every week. See you in the next one.